Okay, let's get part 2 done. Find Maiden's job. Thus ends the fealty ceremony. Okay, I'm off to the book room. Stop, we're not done here. At the high priest's direction, I left the altar and moved to the front of his desk. Fran brought me a chair, so I sat down. Thank you, Fran. Your gratitude is wasted on me. Fran grimaced a little, looking surprised. Maybe it was wrong for me to thank my attendant. It would probably be smart to ask Frida about how to act like a noble. I mean, that's basic common sense is to thank someone for doing something nice. Are you ready to listen? Yes, go ahead. I wasn't sure what they were for, but the high priest's desk was covered with stacks of wooden boards and pieces of parchment. He looked over a few of them and glanced at me. He was acting entirely like a teacher with a textbook lecturing its student. As you know, all the blue robes in the temple are of noble birth. You should operate under the assumption that none of them are pleased with a commoner such as yourself wearing blue robes as well. Yeah, you can gather that. I had guessed that myself, but hearing it said to my face sent a chill down my spine. When I first asked about being an apprentice shrine maiden, I had half a year of life ahead of me at best. I would have been happy if I could just read books in the book room until I died. But the temple had magic tools. By becoming a blue apprentice shrine maiden, my lifespan had been extended and my life in the temple no longer had a time limit. I would need to think hard about my future and not through a lens of self-destruction. At the moment, there are few enough blue robes that everyone understands our need for those of mana, so their hostility will likely end with them ignoring you. But that will not last when more noble children come to the temple. You will do well to plan ahead. Yeah, you need to, definitely. I clenched my fists in my lap and bit my lip. If I messed up when dealing with nobles, my whole family would be affected. I needed information to survive in the temple safely. In particular, the High Bishop was opposed to allowing even this fealty ceremony. The other blue robes have not met you, so their feelings will be founded on their scorn for commoners. For this reason, I have elected to take on the role of your overseer myself. Good, you need someone in your corner, mine. I, as a commoner who had both mana and money despite my low status, basically stomped on the nobility's sense of pride and privilege just by existing. No way would any of them like me, I knew that. But despite saying that nobles wouldn't like me, the high priest was being quite kind, warning me about all this. Do you not dislike me yourself, High Priest? I value those with competence. At the moment, my workload has increased due to the lack of priests and shrine maidens. I know that you, skilled with paperwork as you are, will be helping lessen that load. Why would I despise you? He let out a laugh, and the dark smile on his face made me freeze. Oh. Ho, ho, ho. The fact that he knew I was good at paperwork meant that he had finished the investigation he had mentioned before. Yeah, he must have gone to Otto about this, or asked around and found out about Otto getting you help. He already knew more about me than I might ever know. I now lived in a world that didn't even know the meaning of privacy protection. Yeah, that's kind of not a thing. As a noble, if the high priest asked for information, any commoner would give it to him on the spot. Just what did he know about me now? It was scary to think about. I'll do my absolute best, but what work will you be giving me? If there's something I should be doing, please tell me. Of course. Your work primarily is serving as my assistant and helping complete my paperwork. This is your most important job. You will be doing paperwork here throughout the morning. Next is prayer and offerings. We never see her doing paperwork in the show, so I didn't even know about this. As a shrine maiden, you will need to learn to pray properly. I understand prayer, but what do you mean by offerings? Pouring mana into the divine instruments. Fran, the shield. Fran nodded and returned with a shield about 50 or 60 centimeters in diameter. It was circular, seemingly made of gold, and carved with such elaborate reliefs that its status as a divine instrument was immediately obvious. In the center was a bright yellow gem about as big as my palm, wavering a bit on the inside as if it contained burning fire. The outside ring of the shield was studded with similar gemstones about as big as marbles. Half these gems were yellow, whereas the other half were clear like crystals. Touch the magic stone in the center. Envision yourself pouring your own mana into it. Apparently, it was a magic stone, not a gemstone. With my heart trembling with excitement about how fantasy-like that was, I don't blame her. I would too. I'd be geeking out. I touched the stone with my right hand, which made the entire shield start to glow a golden color. The text carved into the shield let out a yellow-green light and floated about a wrist's length from the shield, though I had never seen the letter-like symbols before and couldn't read them. Wow, it's like a magic circle. So cool, so cool. I tried reading the mysterious shining symbols, my heart racing with curiosity, when suddenly I felt something like the heat inside of me being sucked out by a vacuum cleaner. It was the same thing I felt when Frida used a magic tool to save me when the devouring had me on the verge of death. Figuring that I may as well go all out, I opened up the metaphorical box I always push my mana into. The devouring heat flooded out, raced to my palm, and got sucked into the stone. I trusted myself to the pleasurable feeling of the annoying heat getting sucked out, but soon snapped back to my senses. This isn't going to break the shield, is it? I don't think so. I mean, if it's a divine tool, it must be very sturdy. I remembered how I had broken Frida's magic tool and, getting scared, reflexively pulled my hand back. I then squashed the slightly reduced mana back inside me. I had only let out mana for a short period of time, but still I felt a lot better. Like a heavy stone on my back had been lifted. 7 minor magic stones worth then. I imagine she probably would have had more of those filled had she not gotten scared and pulled her hand back. The High Priest's musings made me look at the shield, and I saw that more of the small magic stones were yellow than before. Apparently they changed colors when filled with mana. You could tell at a glance how much mana was left inside of it. Somehow it felt like I had become a portable battery charger. Yeah, kind of. I opened and closed my right hand, which I used to pour the mana in. The devouring heat really is mana. Wow. Surprisingly easy to control when there's a clear exit for it, I thought, and soon the High Priest peered down at me with a somewhat worried look on his face. Mine, how do you feel? A little relieved? It feels like I'm lighter than before. I see. Be sure not to overburden yourself when offering your mana. It seemed that recharging divine instruments with mana would be pretty easy work. The praying would be the hard part, since standing on one foot was hard for me in my current body. Especially since I couldn't hold out my arms to maintain balance, as I had to hold them diagonally upwards. I could imagine that I would receive strict instructions on the angle of my arms and how long I should maintain positions. And finally, your last job is to read the Bible and memorize its contents, concluded the High Priest in a fairly quiet voice, but my ears perked up immediately. Read the Bible and memorize it. It wasn't too confident in my memory, but reading it, leave that to me. Yeah, my memory's not good either, girl, so I sympathize with you on that one. I'll do it. Let's go to the book room right now. I stood up and shot my hand into the air to show the High Priest how enthusiastic I was, but the High Priest didn't even look at me, instead choosing to pick up another piece of parchment and skim it. Before that, I would like to discuss the matter of your donation. Please sit. Arnold, my ledger. Money discussions were very important. I had been curious about the subject of my donation, too, since I had offered to pay such an abnormally high amount. Mainly, I was curious as to how I would pay and where it would go. You said that you would donate a large gold, as I recall. The High Priest gave me a light glare. Why would you glare at such a large amount? I recalled a discussion I had with Benno. He said something about there being a ceremony held several times throughout the year where the Merchants Guild gathered money to donate to the temple, though he had never donated directly himself. He also said, what was it? You'll stick out in a bad way if you pay that much. How about you split it up and pay in bits? A rich idiot handing out too much money too fast just gonna annoy everyone. If you demand I pay that much, I will, but I think it would be better if I donated a small gold coin every month. We do not dictate how much one should donate, so that is possible if you so wish, but what reason do you have for doing so? A wise person I know told me if I suddenly paid the full amount, people might be overwhelmed by the large sum and start spending more money than they otherwise would have. Well, either way, I want to discuss it with you first, since you know all about the temple's finances and how donations work and so on. Naturally, I didn't reuse Benno's exact words, but the High Priest understood what I meant and thought for a bit, then sighed. Half of every donation is spent on the temple's upkeep, whereas the other half is distributed to the Blue Priests. The amount given to each priest depends somewhat on their status. As the one that manages this, I think you would do well to donate 5 small golds at first, and then donate the remainder over the following month, 1 small gold at a time. Why that much specifically? I tilted my head in confusion, and the High Priest held out a bundle of parchment to me. I ran my eyes over it and learned that it was part of his ledger. I blinked in surprise, and he pointed at a part of them. The temple's income can be broadly separated into funding from the Archduke, donations gathered during certain ceremonies, and finally financial support from the families of blue priests. This means that fewer blue priests results in less income. To put it in terms easy for a merchant to understand, the temple is currently operating in the red. For this reason, the High Bishop was yelling about squeezing money out of you. It would be a significant help to me if you were to donate a large sum at once to satisfy him. I got the feeling that he was kind of spilling a lot of secrets to me. Was it really okay for me to know that the temple was losing money? High Priest, is that something you're supposed to be telling me? Your work will involve these issues in a matter of days. Telling you now impacts nothing. It seems that while helping the High Priest, I wouldn't just be doing the math like I was with Otto. I'd be sticking myself headfirst into the temple's inner workings. Okay. How should I give you the money? I usually use my guild card to transfer money, but I don't think you have one. You need merely bring it here. No? He made that sound simple, but I really had only ever dealt with large sums of money through my card. I had never held any gold coins with my own hands. As a kid, walking from the Merchant's Guild to the temple with that much money on me was terrifying. Oh, yeah, because, if anybody knew that you were carrying that sum of money, you would get robbed as soon as you stepped out of that dang building. That might be easy for you, since you're used to dealing with money, High Priest, but that's way too much for me to carry. The very idea is scary. What do you think? What in the world do you think your attendants are for? Wait, attendants? I reflexively turned around and looked at the attendants lined up behind me. No way would I entrust that much money to these maliciously picked meanies. Well, Fran would probably be okay if I framed it as an order from the High Priest, but Delia and Gil would probably waste the money on something to spite me. Judging by their attitudes toward me, I couldn't yet trust them as attendants. I don't want to involve other people and then be responsible for mix-ups like the guild saying they gave the money, but the attendants saying they didn't get the money. Yeah, I don't blame her for saying that one. She can't really trust Delia and Gil right yet because, well, they're kind of, not picked by her and not picked by the High Priest, really. But Gil is kind of picked by the High Priest, but only as an annoyance. I would only trust Fran right now with that. Do you not trust your attendants? He said, confused, which made me confused as well. Are nobles capable of trusting strangers who clearly don't like them to the point of having them carry around gold coins for them? Or maybe the attendants were bound by some kind of contract magic that prevented them from betraying me. I thought back to when the attendants were introduced to me, but I was pretty sure we hadn't signed a contract or anything. Magic contracts involve blood, and that wasn't something I would forget. You're calling them my attendants, but to me, they're strangers who I have no control over. How can I trust them with that much money? That's beyond me. I mean, they're not even friendly or anything. Well, Fran, kind of. He's loyal to the High Priest, so I don't think he would kind of betray you, because that would mean betraying the High Priest. No way, no way. Compared to these three, I would much rather trust the Guildmaster even. Wow, you would trust him more than these guys? Wow. Personally, there weren't many adults I would trust with money. Maybe I could get Benno or Mark to come here? The High Priest was a noble, so Benno would probably agree on the basis of forming connections. That would be nice. I would like an adult I can trust that's used to dealing with large sorts of money to bring me the donation. Would you permit him to enter the temple on my behalf? Who is this adult? Mr. Benno of the Gilberta Company, the one who's serving as my guardian in the business world. Very well then. I'll stop by the store and talk about this once Let's comes to get me. While I'm there, I can ask him if he knows how to use attendants properly. Maybe it's similar to how he uses his employees? As I fell into thought, the High Priest closed his ledger and handed it to Arno. That is all I have to talk about today. Any questions, mine? Yes, Les is coming at 4th bell to get me, and I would like to read books in the book room until then. Can I enter the book room? I would love to do the final part of my job and read the Bible to memorize it. Les is the boy managing your health, as I recall. From now on, have your attendants manage your health in his stead. Yeah, so when he's not there, they're going to have to deal with you. Despite asking to enter the book room, the topic shifted to my health management. I looked at my attendants again. Gil was scratching his head with a clear lack of enthusiasm. Delia was staring out the window absent-mindedly, and Fran was looking at the High Priest over my shoulder. It was hard to imagine any of them learning to manage my health. Well, it's going to take time, girl. They're going to have to figure that out. Just have Let's talk to them. He knows how to do it. My family has told me to stick with Let's until my attendants can manage my health. I, too, would like that to happen as soon as possible, so Let's doesn't have to worry about me so much. I hope my attendants work hard to make that happen, but anyway, can I go to the book room now? Fran, take her there. As you wish. Fran crossed his arms and nodded with a slight smile. His proud expression was entirely different from the one he wore when looking at me, and it was clear who he considered his true master to be. Yeah, well, it makes sense. He trusts the High Priest, and the High Priest trusts him, so of course they're going to have that kind of relationship. But still, Fran was better than the other two. He probably wouldn't do anything problematic since he was so enraptured with the High Priest. I came to this conclusion while following him to the book room, skipping as I walked. It's finally time for the book room. This is my job. Delia and Gil followed me from behind as I skipped with excitement. After we were some distance away from the High Priest room, Gil spat out some insults. Why do you even want to go to the book room? You're freaking stupid. If you don't get why books are amazing, you're the stupid one. I spun around and glared at Gil. He wrinkled his nose and got ready for a fight. What's with that look? You're not a noble. You're nothing but a commoner. You're just like us, but you're being all smug with those blue robes. You're not my master. I'm never gonna listen to you, and I'm gonna make your life crap. Oh, great. Gil is gonna be a troublemaker here. Of course. Just like Gil didn't think of me as his master, I didn't think of him as my servant. It would be a waste of my time and energy to try and whip him into shape. So I ignored him. Sure, okay, same to you. What do you mean, okay? You making fun of me? As Gil shouted in anger, I turned my back to him and walked off. The moment I did, I heard the high-pitched voice of a girl speaking up. This whole situation is stupid. Delia let out a the smile completely gone from her face. I had thought she would hide her true personality around the other attendants, since she seemed like the type to butter men up. Oh yeah, you don't know the half of it, girl. That was not the case. It seemed like I would need to change my evaluation of her. Maybe she wasn't the kind of girl that used her beauty to flatter and manipulate men. Sort of. Or maybe she was the kind of cold-blooded hunter that only wooed the men she had her sights set on. It's kind of more of that, yeah. I gave Delia another look, and she lifted up her chin arrogantly, her dark red hair rustling in the process. It was hard to think she was only 8 years old. Honestly, it kind of scared me to think what led her to being like this. Geez, I finally get to be an apprentice serving the High Bishop, but now I'm stuck with a little girl who my charms won't work on. And a dense commoner girl at that. This is just the worst. Jerk. It seemed that the High Bishop had sent Delia. That explained why she wasn't friendly, but what did she have to gain from announcing that she was a spy? Did the High Bishop tell her to do that? Okay, I'll get someone to take your place. Confused by her revelations, I suggested that I would have her replaced with someone else, which for some reason made her burst into anger with arched eyebrows. Geez, you really are stupid. Don't switch me out for anyone. What are you even thinking? Why would she not? You clearly don't want to be here, and you clearly do not like her. Why is that a problem for you? That's my line. What are you thinking? The High Bishop himself asked me to bother you. If I get switched out, he'll think I'm Exactly! That's what I'm talking about. Despite speaking the same language, we weren't understanding each other at all. I simply did not get her. Now that I knew the High Bishop had directly ordered her to bother me, there was no way I would go anywhere near her if I could help it. I would obviously try to get her a place. Yeah, you need to talk to the High Priest about this. Find out what the heck they're thinking on this. Suddenly, I realized something. Even if I got rid of Delia, the High Bishop would definitely just send another attendant to spy on me. It would probably be safer for me to stick with Delia, who didn't think twice before revealing her intentions, than risk getting a spy who was good at hiding things. Oh, yeah. Probably be a good idea. As I found a thought, Delia jabbed an accusatory finger my way. I'm not afraid of you just because you have blue robes. I have the High Bishop's approval, and soon I'm going to be his mistress. I hate that. That's gross. Because you know the High Bishop's old. I don't even know if he can produce heirs. Either I misheard her, or for some reason nobles these days really love to make little girls their mistresses. I mean, they're talking about when they're adults, obviously. But whatever. I thought back to how shocked I had been to hear Frida say something similar, then the thought about how old the High Bishop was and felt a little sick. I agree. I thought that the grave shrine maiden with the bookish sex appeal had been his type, but I guess not. Why would you think that? Should you really be proud about being a mistress? Obviously. Don't you know being a mistress is the best thing we girls can hope for? Or did you seriously not know that? Well, obviously not. Well, if you're not as cute as me, you can pretty much give up on it. Hey! She's cute! Heck, when she gets older, she'll be downright a freaking beauty, in my opinion. Being a mistress is the best thing you can hope for? That was definitely different from what I was used to. In Frida's case, at least, I understood that we were both using the word mistress in the same way. She hadn't seemed proud about it, and it wasn't her life goal. Yeah, because the only way that she could survive was being a mistress, essentially. This is something completely different. I stood there blown away by how different Delia's worldview was from my own, at which point Gil shot a mocking smile at me and shrugged. Like, duh, if you're a blue robe's mistress, you get to have gray robe servants yourself. The High Bishop's mistresses are like on another level from us gray robes. Man, girls sure are lucky, but for real, is your head alright? This stuff's basic as heck. How do you not know this already? She doesn't know because this sort of stuff is supposed to be in the temple, correct? How would she know about this stuff if she had never been in the temple until her baptism? Duh. I mean, yes, the whole gray priest, blue priest thing should have been common knowledge to mine, but... because even her dad knew about it. But nobody tells her these things. And apparently mine's memories didn't have that either, so obviously nobody told her anything. So how is she supposed to know this? She can't read minds. Despite him mocking me for being ignorant, I couldn't feel mad. I didn't want to know that girls in the orphanage only had one way to be successful in life. I didn't want to know that they had to become the mistresses of powerful people or waste away. Nobody I had ever met considered becoming a mistress to be the limit of their potential. But to the orphans, to those living in the temple, that was life. They wouldn't listen to me no matter what I said. We were just from different worlds. Gil, you're overstepping your bounds. Thank you, Fran. Someone finally said something. Fran raised his voice as I held my head in my hands, but Gil didn't flinch at all. He just laughed derisively at me. It's her fault for being stupid. Everyone knows this stuff. Sister mine, the high priest instructed you on what to do in this situation. He said that you should reprimand your attendants when they behave improperly. Uh-huh, he sure did. Are we at the book room yet? I really just didn't care. I didn't have the energy or motivation to reprimand or punish Gil and Delia. Fran was enraptured by the high priest and probably wasn't too happy about being stuck as my attendant. Delia was aiming to be the high bishop's mistress and fully intended on making me miserable. Gil looked down on me and from the very start didn't intend on serving me at all. It would be more productive for me to read books than try and figure out how to get on good terms with these three. I will have to report this to the high priest. Go ahead. That's your job, I imagine. Fran sighed, then opened a door and walked inside. My heart jumped for joy after I saw the paradise behind the door. I reached out nervously and searched for an invisible barrier while walking into the room until, unlike last time, I managed to get inside with nothing blocking my way. Wow, the air clearly changed once I was completely inside. Trembling with emotion, I filled my lungs with the kind of dusty air you can only find in book storage rooms. The smell was a bit different from what I was used to, probably due to the usage of parchment and the number of wooden boards. The ink was probably made differently, too. The smell of ink and old paper was so nostalgic for me that tears of happiness actually formed in my eyes. There weren't many bookshelves in the room. Some had tightly shut doors, while others were packed with nigh overflowing numbers of boards and scraps of paper. Managing scrolls were elsewhere, while parchments wrapped up like carpet rolls that had their names written on labels that hung off them. A bit further into the room were cylindrical containers shaped like barrels that had an entire series of scrolls inside them with labels attached to them to identify the contents. The light shining in from the spaced-apart windows was bright, and there was a long desk by them that looked like one you might see in a college library. The top of the desk had a slanted book reading section which had several books lined up, chained to the desk but still begging to be read. This is the Bible. At Fran's guidance, I touched the leather cover of one of the chained books. I then unfastened the belt that was keeping it closed. Immediately the book opened a bit with the cover lifting up on its own. That was normal for most moist parchment, but it seemed to me that the book was begging me to read it. How long has it been since I just opened a book and read it? Too long, girl. At least a couple years. I opened the cover, and the clank of chains echoed through the book room. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the yellowed pages. I traced my fingers over the distinctively handwritten text and began reading a book myself for the first time in a long time. Hey, come on, it's noon. Time for lunch. Despite the fact I was dwelling in the long mist bliss of reading, somebody came to interfere. I could have ignored them if they just kept calling out to me, but I was forced back into reality by them shaking my shoulder. Gil, no talking in the library. If you can't be quiet, get out. I'm reading right now. Friggin' what? It's lunch! Yelled Gil in stunned surprise, but I didn't even need to compare the importance of lunch with the importance of books. With a book in hand, I could go 2 days without eating before getting hungry. Wow, girl, but not in that body. Probably not that body. Your old body, baby, but not that one. Apparently, I'm not your master, so what do you care? Go over and eat on your own. Despite giving him the freedom to eat on his own, his eyes opened wide and he tried to say something, but I cut him off. Listen closely, Gil. Don't get in my way. I intentionally unleashed my mana and let it course through me before he made me snap in anger. I kind of got the knack of controlling mana during the offering earlier, and now was as good a time as any to try letting it out. Fran immediately grabbed Gil and Delia by the scruff of their necks and dashed out of the book room with them. Nice and quiet! I forced the mana back into me and resumed reading. Nobody else bothered my reading until Les came to get me. Wow, girl. Hold on, let me check. I'm gonna have to probably let this last a couple more minutes. Not like the other blue robes. Let's! The moment I saw Letz's face, I felt the relief of being back in a world I was familiar with flow through me. I raced down the stairs and jumped into Letz's arms, hugging him tightly as I rubbed my head against him. I'm already so tired, Letz. Yeah, you're looking a bit under the weather. Good work today. Letz patted my head and praised me for my hard work. I mainly just read today, but my attendants were apparently required to stay near me as part of their job. There was always someone near me watching everything I did. It was normal for me to stop paying attention to my surroundings once I got absorbed in a book, but it was bad for my heart to notice someone watching me every time I came back to reality. The emotional baggage of being stared at was heavy enough to tire me out. Nobles were impressive, actually. How long would it be before I got used to this kind of thing? Maybe I had it easier than them since I could go home and sleep unattended. I would probably go crazy if I was watched constantly from good morning to good night. Good lord, yeah. Hey, Lutz, I want to go see Mr. Benno right now if I can. Was he at the store? He got back when I was leaving, so probably. Why? What happened? I shook my head at Lutz as he started worrying. I need to get money from the Merchants Guild and bring it to the High Priest as a donation. Sooner is better, so... Alright, let's go. We started to walk in that direction, but for some reason my trio of attendants began to follow us. Inside the temple was one thing, but I definitely didn't want them following me outside. I didn't want them watching me at all times. You three don't have to come. I am afraid that I must as your attendant. That was Fran probably talking. That's right, meeting someone without your attendant is just ridiculous. Don't even think about it. Fran and even Delia were both so opposed to me meeting Benno without them that I could guess normal blue robe priests always brought their attendants with them to meetings. I'll have to make a mental note of that. Well, if I don't gotta go, I'm not gonna. I'm too hungry for it. Gil, who probably didn't know much about attendance either, gave me a kind of hateful glare and spun around to leave, but the other two didn't do the same. I felt better without attendants around. I was going to a place I was used to visiting, and with Lutz around, the attendants would be dead weight anyway. Well, what's the harm in driving them off then? Hey, Delia, could you go tell the High Priest that I'll be back with a donation once I settle things with Mr. Benno? I'll be in big trouble if he doesn't hear about this. I'm counting on you. Oh, you'll be in big trouble? I understand. I'll be sure he hears about this. Delia turned around and entered the temple with the most excited smile I had seen on her for the entire day. I let out a sigh of relief at having brushed Delia off, which made Fran grimace a bit, while looking at Delia go. Sister mine, if you have messages for the High Priest, I can deliver them. Please go with Delia. Fran, I asked Delia to do that. If I needed an attendant with me, you can come with me yourself. Fran gave a blatantly unhappy frown and shook his head, but there's no telling if she will actually deliver that message to the High Priest. I'm with Lutz right now, so you can go deliver it to him yourself if you want. I'll be in trouble if no one else does. Definitely. I left it at that and walked off holding hands with Lutz. Fran wavered for a bit at the temple entrance, but ultimately decided to prioritize delivering the message to the High Priest. He turned around and entered the temple. You sure that was the right thing to do, mine? Aren't they supposed to be learning to manage your health? Lutz turned back and looked at the now vacant temple entrance. Oh yeah, they were supposed to learn to do that. I thought to myself while sighing heavily, one of those 3 attendants assigned to me should be learning to do that. But I don't think it'll happen. He just doesn't have the motivation for it. Huh? He wants to serve the High Priest, but he was probably told to serve me instead. No matter what he's doing for me, he doesn't seem happy about it. Things might change if he starts considering me his master more than the High Priest, but that's basically never going to happen. Ever. You as a mastermind? Yeah, can't see it. You don't have the kind of majesty or dignity that demands respect, said Lutz in a teasing tone with a laugh. I laughed with him. It was good to be back with someone I could trust. Hi, Mr. Mark. Is Mr. Benno here? I saw Mark while Lutz was opening the door, so I waved at him like usual. His eyes widened, and he paled the moment he saw me. Mine, come inside quickly. Huh? Mark looking more upsetted than I had ever seen before. Oh yeah, she's still wearing the blue robes. Duh. Hurriedly urged me into the store. He immediately opened the door to Benno's office and gestured us inside without giving his permission and without having us wait in the store like he normally did. Master Mine has arrived at the store. I'm letting her in at once. What's with you, Mark? Why has my visiting got you all? Said Benno in a teasing tone as he looked up, having heard Mark close the door immediately, but the second he saw me, his eyes opened wide and his eyebrows shot up in anger. Ah, Mine, you idiot! Eek! His sudden shouting surprised me so much that I fell back and covered my ears. Even Les gasped and jumped a little. What? Why are you so mad, Benno? You thoughtless idiot! Why did you come here wearing that? Did you really walk all the way here from the temple wearing that? Yep, the blue robe. She's still wearing them. She doesn't know. I did, but what's the problem with that? I looked down at my outfit, tilted my head in confusion. Les did the same. Seeing that neither of us fundamentally understood the problem, Benno scratched his head and Mark rubbed his temples. Mine, you're wearing a blue shrine maiden outfit. Normal blue shrine maidens are nobles. Nobles travel by carriage. They never just walk around the city. Do you understand why? Benno's question confused me. I thought back to the few times I had ridden carriages myself. They were bumpy and uncomfortable, but since commoners rarely, if ever, got to ride them, they became a symbol of status and were a fast way of impressing them. Back in my Arano days, I only used a car when I knew I would be bringing a lot of stuff back. When the destination was a long way away, or when the weather was bad and walking would be annoying. Because they want to show off and walking is a pain? No. If nobles just walked around, they would be kidnapped and held hostage for a ransom. Never wear that outside the temple unless you want to get kidnapped. Yes, sir. I immediately started taking off my apprentice shrine maiden robes. I was wearing my apprentice merchant outfit beneath them, so all I had to do was undo the sash and pull the robes over my head. I thought the blue robes were basically like a school uniform, but to other people they're like a sign saying, I am a noble, I have money. I have never even considered that someone might kidnap me for money. Benno watched me fold up the robes with a conflicted expression on his face and sighed heavily with exhaustion. Anyway, what are you doing here? I doubt you came here just to give us heart attacks. Right, I have a request for you, Mr. Benno. Could you come with me to the Merchant's Guild and then go to the temple? What for? Benno blinked in confusion. I want you to help withdraw and carry 5 small gold to the temple for a donation. I've been handling large money exchanges with my guild card up until now. But the High Priest doesn't have one, and I'll be scared of walking around with that much money. I asked the High Priest about this, and believe it or not, he just told me to have my attendants do it. Benno furrowed his brows at my complaints. What do you mean, believe it or not? That's what attendants do. It's their job. I don't know how anyone expects me to have the courage to trust that much money with people I barely know. People who don't even like me. I said, pursing my lips. Benno's dark red eyes opened wide, and he blinked in surprise. There are people out there that someone as thoughtless as you, someone who's been tricked by the Guildmaster more times than I can count, someone who keeps trusting him after that, can't trust? What in the world is wrong with them? One of them is a spy sent by the High Bishop, and one of them is a spy sent by the High Priest. Sort of, kind of, not really. The last one is a troublemaker assigned to me out of spite. I can deal with them following me around the temple, but no way can I trust them with my money. You know, I figured as much, but wow, they really hate you over there, huh? Benno's accurate assessment made me groan a little. The High Priest doesn't hate her. The High Bishop does, and probably most of the nobles, once they find out she's a commoner, do. But the High Priest doesn't, and he sent one of his most trusted people to guard you, girl. When this all started, I thought I wouldn't care about anything as long as I could read books for the last months of my life. This is going to be awful if it never stops. Yeah, the situation's different now. Your only choice with the spies is to build up a good relationship with them, even if it's just a superficial one. Look for things you can trust them to do without putting your full faith in them. As for the troublemaker, well, train him like you would a wild animal. Framing Gil as a wild animal made me think of a baby monkey playing tricks in a tree while screeching noisily. But animals and people are different. Not as much as you'd think if you don't listen to them, if they don't listen to you. Hit them with a stick. If they don't listen to you, give them a reward. Beat into them who their master is. Putting aside matters of trust, it seemed I would need to make them obedient either way. I'd rather use that time to read books. Don't be lazy. It'll be worse if you end up in noble society without attendants you can use. I try to be optimistic. Benno sighed and shook his head to get back on track. We get off topic here. So, when are you supposed to be bringing this donation? I was going to decide on a date after hearing about your plans. I asked one of my attendants to tell the High Bishop that I'll bring the money when you're ready. So, oh boy. Hearing that made Benno jump out of his chair. That's the same thing as saying you'll be bringing it immediately. Mark, get ready. We're going to the temple. Understood. Mark, looking pale, dashed out of the room. Okay, let's go to the Merchant's Guild then. That'll be a waste of time. No need for us to go. Hold out your card. After tapping cards with me, Benno said to put my blue robes back on. Then used the inner door to race up the stairs to the next floor. I picked up the robes I had just taken off and put them back on. After tying the sash, I hung my head. I hadn't expected any of this to happen. I just said that to get rid of my attendants, but it put both Benno and me in a bad situation. What should I do, lads? Everything down to the meaning of just a few words changed dramatically based on where you were and who you were talking to. Words mean different things for different groups, I thought. I understood something that simple, but I didn't. Let's patted my head gently. No surprise here. We don't know anything about nobles. You couldn't help making a mistake this time, but you gotta work to improve your flaws. My flaws? I tilted my head in confusion, and let's give a big nod while looking at me with somewhat stern eyes. I know you love books more than anything, and you just want to keep reading books forever. But before that can happen, you need to learn to talk to the people around you and learn how to live properly. I don't know anything about the world of merchants, things everyone around me knows. I don't. So I'm listening to everyone I can, picking up all the information I can. The other apprentices, Mr. Mark, everyone's teaching me. If you ignore people just because they are annoying to deal with, you'll never learn how to live. Lutz's words cut deep into my heart. I knew that he, as the son of a craftsman that jumped headfirst into the world of merchants, was working his absolute hardest to fit into the store. But me? Although my motivations were different, I had jumped into the world of the temple just like Lutz, but I wasn't making any effort to get used to living there. I'm working hard because I want to live as a merchant. If you want to read books, you gotta learn to live in the temple. Don't worry, I know you can do it, because you're smart, mine. I'm not smart, I never think before doing anything. You're way smarter than me, Lutz. No way was I smart. I was a thoughtless idiot, just like Benno said. No matter how much I learned in either life, it never helped me calm down and think ahead. Thoughtless or not, you always run straight towards your goal, right? If your goal is to read books and be happy, what's going to stop you from doing just that? Work hard, mind, so you can relax and read books. You know me too well, Lutz. Just as my heart was lifted up with optimism, footsteps came echoing down the stairs. The inner door creaked open, and Mark, wearing a long-sleeve outfit of a single color, walked back into the room. Sorry to keep you waiting. Instead of his usual butler outfit, Mark was wearing a loose-looking, long-sleeved garment that strongly resembled a kimono. It was green with blue embroidery, and the garment reached all the way down to his knees. Beneath it was a tightly fitting pair of white pants. In contrast to the loose upper garment, which reminded me of how I had made my baptism outfit look fancier, the cloth was visibly high quality, and it was obvious that the outfit was for dealing with nobles. Finally done, Benno came into the room after Mark. He was wearing a white upper garment with sleeves even longer and larger than Mark's outfit, and a hem that went down to his ankles. The embroidery was so much fancier than Mark's that they couldn't even be compared, and he was even wearing a lightweight cloak on top of it. The cloak had blue gemstones on the shoulders and was clasped with a golden brooch. He was holding something that looked like flowers. Huh? His milky-colored hair was slicked back with something that like pomade, making him look like an entirely different person. The fact that one was expected to wear an outfit this different just to talk to nobles at all made me gasp. I was once again reminded that I had jumped into an entirely different world, and it terrified me now more than ever. I never should have said something that wrapped Benno or anyone else into this. Mr. Benno, I'm sorry I got you into this because I didn't think hard enough, I said, running up to him. Benno pointed at the flower hairpin he was carrying, saying it was their newest one, and then slipped it into my bun next to my hair stick. Then he gave me his usual invincible grin and said, "Don't sweat it so much. My motto is that you find the best opportunities at the worst of times. If we hand our donation over fast and treat this like a noble would, we'll give a good impression of the Gilberta Company. Let's go." Benno's confident declaration didn't seem to be dishonest. I didn't know what kind of command structure existed within the store, but by the time Benno and Mark finished changing and left, they had a small box packed with small golds, a rolled-up piece of cloth, a small jar, and 3 somethings bundled up in the cloth, all prepared. Outside of the store was a carriage large enough to fit 4 adults with a well-dressed driver waiting for us. When did this all happen? They don't have phones, so how did they command all this? As I stood there surprised, Benno picked me up with far more respectful reverence than usual and politely carried me to the carriage. After being sat in the clearly expensive carriage, I looked up at Benno with a worried look on his face. Worried look on my face. He flicked my forehead. "You're a noble right now. I'm used to this kind of thing, and I'll take care of it. So you just sit there and smile. Don't panic, no matter what happens. Be bold, never lower your head or stare at the ground. Does all that sound possible?" "I can do it." I saw Lutz through the window of the carriage. He mouthed, "Good luck," and I nodded hard. Mark got inside, shut the door, and off went the carriage. My heart shook along with the bumpy carriage as it took me to my first real encounter with noble society. Oh boy, here we go. Now let me pause. We're not even gonna get to see it! We saw it in the anime, but good God almighty. Anyway, I'll get to work on editing this, and I'll see you guys next time.